As this Zero Hedge article says, Austria wants to ban online anonymity and urges the world to follow in its footsteps. If anything was completely futile, this is it, guys. As the article goes into, convinced that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't quite yet have enough user data, Austria is now considering a new law that would require large internet platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to register their users, effectively banning anonymity on social media sites. The new law would be targeted at depriving those behind hate posts of anonymity, according to the local. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz said, and I quote, "Unfortunately, there have been an increasing numbers of clear violations, denigrations, and humiliations online in the past under the cover of anonymity. That's why we need a framework for more responsible online, or more responsibility online." But isn't the anonymous denigration and humiliation of others a founding principle of the internet and part of what makes it great? As the article continues here, the law, if passed, would go into effect in 2020 and would make it mandatory for users of popular social media sites to register their users. The platforms would have flexibility on how they register their users, but Austria seeks to give its authorities access to a user's identity in the event of hate posting or on suspicion of other laws being broken. The report didn't say what exactly qualified as hate posting. Gernot Blumel, minister in charge of EU affairs, art, culture, and media, said the online space should not be a space without laws. He continues, saying that Austria aimed to set a precedent for other countries in the matter. As it continues here, it says, in Austria, the law would have to be approved by both MPs and the European Commission to ensure that it is in line with the EU guidelines that stipulate that member states cannot regulate a platform provider more strictly than its country of origin. The law would only apply to internet platforms with a reach of more than 100,000 users or a turnover of more than 500,000 euros in Austria. It would also apply to platforms that get more than 50,000 euros in state aid. Opposition parties claim that such a law would restrict online freedom and hand over even more data to giants like Facebook, whose track record with user privacy is spotty, to say the least. Earlier this year, French President Emmanuel Macron caused controversy by suggesting a similar law. So, okay, this is so incredibly futile to think that they are going to create this law under the guise of, hate, and people might get offended. We got to be nice, guys. We can't be offensive to people. The idea that this would actually work is absurd and laughable at best. I mean, as they encroach further and steal more people's information and crack down on anonymity even more so, people will simply move away from those platforms. We've already seen that. People are moving away from these platforms and markets are innovating for this exact problem. Everything from the blockchain to, these different apps on your phone to talk to people, privately. Yeah, there's still those that will willingly give up all their information, and we see that on Facebook and stuff. But as it gets really bad, people are going to move away. And also, it's hard to not mention that a lot of this has to do with not just Facebook stealing information, but what Facebook was helping China with, the social credit system, in order to judge people's scores and not allow them to eat at certain restaurants, leave the country, fly certain places without loud sounds being blasted in their ear to make them uncomfortable. The whole idea is to control people and completely control people. We're not just talking about minor data. We're talking about, he criticized the government. I guess he can't leave the country anymore, which slowly you incrementally, like a frog boil, push this on people and normalizes it. People accept it. It's absurd. So we need to break free from that. But, there's some good news to all this as well, as this other article says here. Americans aren't buying into the elite's cashless utopia. Nearly 2/3 of Americans were against a cashless society, according to a recent survey conducted by Civic Science. As it continues, it says, mobile payments and cashless stores are popping up across the country between stores like Amazon Go and payment options like Apple Pay. Using these services requires access to the banking system, namely a bank account and credit card, according to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. In 2017, FDIC survey showed that 6.5% of U.S. households were unbanked. Oh man, meaning they lacked a checking or savings account, and an additional 18.7% of households were underbanked. Meaning they had a checking or savings account but obtained financial products like money orders or payday loans outside of the banking system. That's pretty good news. As Statista's Sarah Feldman notes, some advocates and legislators worry that an increasingly cashless world will further disenfranchise America's homeless and working poor, who may fall into these unbanked and underbanked categories. New Jersey and Massachusetts both have laws that prohibit stores from discriminating against customers choosing to use cash. Cities like Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, D.C., and San Francisco all have proposed or have laws regulating cashless stores. Advocates of cashless stores points to the increased speed and ease of payment for customers and the lower rates of theft that cashless places of business experience. Some cashless options like Square Inc. and PayPal offer payment services that don't require a bank account. About 23% of respondents from Civic Sciences survey said they were all for or okay with a cashless society. Just under a tenth of respondents did not have an opinion on whether having cashless society would be a good thing or not. They are trying to unroll a completely centrally planned technocratic superstate, as was a goal for so long. Going back to the early 1970s, where Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong, formed an alliance with China, which led to the Trilateral Commission's creation under Zbigniew Brzezinski and Jimmy Carter in the late 1970s, which led, as like I said, an incremental frog boil to the complete technocratic superstate and cashless society we see in China today. Vast debt, vast centralization. What are you going to do about it? If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always the banks, and you're always enslaved to the banking system. You are dependent on that system right where they want you, folks. And people are waking up to that. People are breaking free from that. People are looking for other avenues to survive and to break free and to, make sure that they can ensure their wealth and put food on the table for their families. This is incredibly important. This is a time, one of the most historic times to be alive, as we look at this desperation by the system to unroll this as a monetary system collapses at its foundation. So we have negative interest rates in places like Sweden, Japan. They try to unroll their cashless society. Australia is as well. The city of Darwin, as we recently went into, is unrolling a complete facial recognition system and tracking system everywhere to track everyone's moves. They don't have to even put chips in your hands, folks. It's past that now. It's not 1984 anymore. It's 2084, and we are far, far, far past what what people could have imagined even 15 years ago. Social credit, the Chinese government, the police having goggles where they can have facial recognition, where they can track everyone and see their social credit scores and things they said on social media, to the extent, and this is a huge civilization, by the way, like biggest population in the world, and then at the same time have facial recognition that sees them when they're jaywalking and sends messages to their in text to their phones in seconds and shames them on a giant billboard. And then the second most populated country in the world, India, which gave homeless people fake bank accounts years ago in order to unroll this. It was all virtue signaling. It's turned into a disaster. And people are seeing that in India. And so many people reject it because gold is a very, very big part of the Indian culture. I talk to people from India all the time, and they just won't take it. They are going to fail in their desperate move to completely enslave the populace once and for all, where you can't do runs in the bank, you're tracked everywhere, they have social credit, and Facebook is unrolling that kind of system. It's obvious. And if they try to crack down on anonymity, the government is one of the most inefficient things on the planet. The only thing that gives them any power is the cheerleaders, the masses, who beg for more of it all the time. Maybe this guy or this guy will help. Maybe that red is better than blue, or blue is better than red. Pepsi and Coke over and over again. It's ridiculous. But it's futile because people are breaking free and going to decentralized options, and blockchain infrastructure technology that is decentralized and fundamentally useful. The government's developing on the blockchain. Why aren't we doing more to do that? Because the free market is far more efficient, and we will surpass government in no time in developing that technology. It's so important. So anyway, I think that we are on the verge of creating a great new world that isn't controlled and enforced by these maniacs and psychos that run the state and the banking system. It's all organized crime, and we must break free from it, and I think we will. I'm optimistic, but nonetheless, we have to look at stories like this and see that we need to reject this idea of complete control over the masses at every turn. And we need to, all these unbanked people, that's awesome. People are, breaking free from the banking system, ensuring their wealth. Gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, in our opinion, is great ways to ensure wealth long term. So I think we have a lot of great potential going forward. We just have to discern the difference between a centrally planned cashless society by fiat, by law, by force, and a decentralized, fundamentally useful, privacy-oriented cryptocurrency market and blockchain infrastructure technology to replace the state and the government. There are two things there. You can use a gun to slaughter a whole bunch of innocent people, but you could use that same gun to save all those innocent people from being slaughtered. Same goes for the blockchain. You can use a blockchain to enslave humanity if centralized. You can use a blockchain to overthrow that which enslaves humanity if decentralized. It depends how you use something. You can't just blame, for example, food and stop eating if you get food poisoning. That's a problem of, poisoned food, not food in general. There's good things and bad things. You need to. It's not that difficult to discern between two things. So anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us today. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change.
Like what you see here, WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so heavily demonetized and censored by YouTube as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. The shadow banning is getting really bad, guys. Also, check our Bitcoin address right here on the screen or in the description below. We really appreciate it. And of course, check us out at the Red Pill Expo 2019. Of course, the great G. Edward Griffin and so many other incredible speakers will be there. Our link for that is below as well. And we cannot forget Mike Maloney's goldsilver.com, which you can also find in the description. One of the greatest market and monetary historians out there. We really encourage everyone to check that out. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.